The piece of propaganda we are going to look at today is an article by Patty Kanduch in the Missoulian titled "Nation Ignoring Dangers of Chemtrails." Most people have probably heard the term chemtrail before, but let me quickly explain what it means before we move on to the article. Chemtrails are how conspiracy theorists refer to the white, cloud-like stripes left behind by airplanes. These stripes are actually water condensation trails called contrails. The theory is that the government is disguising chemical and biological agents in contrails, making them, quote-unquote, chemtrails. So, why are people convinced that these aren't normal contrails? Well, their supporting evidence is that normal contrails dissipate pretty quickly, so if they're lingering, which these ones have been observed to do, there must be something else in them. Believers are convinced that these chemtrails have malicious intentions behind them, which are speculated over but not agreed upon by the conspiracy theorists as a group. Some of the most common suggestions are weather modification, psychological manipulation, human population control, biological or chemical warfare, or testing of biological or chemical agents on a population. They believe that these chemtrails are causing respiratory and other health problems. So, is any of this true? Science says no. Several reports have been published that debunk the myth of chemtrails. And yet, lots of people still believe that chemtrails are real and that the organizations debunking it are quote-unquote in on the conspiracy. Those of us that believe in the science and don't buy into the chemtrails conspiracy theory are called out in this article just by the title, "Nation Ignoring Dangers of Chemtrails." What's actually dangerous is the faulty information Kanduch is spreading. A widespread belief in chemtrails does nothing but cause mistrust in the U.S. government and scientific experts the same way that anti-vaxxers and climate change deniers do. It preys on people's fear, and in this case there's nothing they can do to avoid chemtrails. It just creates a state of fear. Propaganda that disseminates fear and false information to create fear is harmful. This piece is also harmful and dangerous because it utilizes manipulation tactics to generate the response the author is looking for. The author opens with a reference to nuclear weapon testing in 1945, reminding people of the scary reality that the government has hurt people in the past simply by not knowing what they were doing. This plays on the natural fear we all have for our own safety, activating our emotions. It also sets up the government as an opponent, reminding us of a past failure, which helps her minimize their credibility, and therefore minimizing the credibility of their publications, proving chemtrails false later on. As Kanduch begins to talk about chemtrails, she mentions a statement from an engineer at Boeing who said that these were not contrails from passenger jets. This gives the impression of chemtrails being endorsed by an expert, but here's the problem. She's omitting the context, deciding not to mention that other planes fly besides passenger jets, like cargo airplanes and private jets. It seems the point she's trying to make is that the planes leaving the so-called chemtrails are suspicious, but the reality is the lack of context is what makes it sound true. The author also gives people an incentive to believe her by saying, "You'd have to be blind or dumb not to notice them." This paints a dichotomy. Either you agree with her, or you are blind or dumb. She continues to provoke fear by suggesting that chemtrails can cause a myriad of health problems. To prove her point, she cites a neurosurgeon's statement that nanoaluminum can cause Alzheimer's. Whether or not that statement is true, the neurosurgeon was not referencing chemtrails at the time, misleading readers to interpret this statement in her favor. In the end, like all conspiracy theories, we can take the lesson to resist blindly following authorities, but in doing so, be cautious to avoid falling into the trap of disinformation.